Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Bibbity Bobbity Books. My name is Ellie and this is going to be my autumn book recommendations video. I am so excited that autumn is finally here. It's one of my favourite seasons and it's also a season where I tend to do a lot of reading. I think because the weather is getting a little bit cooler, so I'm spending a little bit more time indoors, and there's just something so cosy about snuggling up with an autumnal book, especially if it's raining outside or if it's a little bit cold. It's just such a cosy activity, isn't it? And I am very much a seasonal reader. I like to read books that reflect the season that we're in, so I love to pick up stories this time of year that encapsulate the feeling of autumn. So books that make me feel like I am out on an autumn walk, you know, I'm breathing in the crisp autumn air, the leaves are falling. I love books that have maybe a little bit of magic in them, a little bit of fairy tale like themes to them, and also books that obviously have a little bit of creepiness too, because we've got spooky season around the corner. So yes, I have compiled a list today of books that I really love to read this time of year. I am also going to be filming some other recommendations videos very soon. I'm going to be doing one on my favourite horror books and also one on my favourite ghosty stories. So do keep an eye out for those videos on my channel if you're looking for some more spooky recommendations, because they will be coming your way very soon. But this video is a autumnal list, so it's books that are kind of loosely connected by the theme of atmosphere. That's the word that we're going for with this video. Books that have loads of atmosphere, and yes, I'm very excited. I love all of these books very much and I hope that you do too. So let's jump into it with the first recommendation. Okay, so the first book that I want to recommend you today is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. And I know this is a very obvious choice. I know that everybody recommends this book for this time of year, and I personally think it's for good reason. And it would feel remiss of me not to include this book on this autumn list, because for me, The Night Circus is just the perfect, most atmospheric autumn read. Yes, you may have already read it, but have you read it recently? Is it time for a reread? I'm here to convince you that it is. So yes, The Night Circus. This is a beautiful standalone fantasy story that has a really whimsical quality to it, and it basically is about this circus that appears in the middle of the night. It appears unannounced and you don't know how long it's going to be there for, so you just have to enjoy it while it's there. And this circus is actually kind of like the stage for this competition between these two young magicians, and they are competing against each other, but unbeknownst to them, there can only be one left standing. Now for me, the creativity and the whimsy of the story is far more important than the plot. I probably wouldn't recommend this one for you if you are a plot-driven reader, but if you just want something that's going to give you the atmosphere, that's going to make you feel so cozy and autumnal, then you can't go wrong with this book. And there are some sections that are written in the present tense, so it literally is written as though you are going and visiting the circus yourself and you're experiencing all of the colour, all of the smells, all of the sights, all of the excitement of the circus, and it's just so transporting and just such a whimsical tale. So for example, I'm going to give you a read of a very brief quote just to give you a little bit of a hint for the flavour of this book. So this quote says, "The circus looks abandoned and empty, but you think perhaps you can smell caramel wafting through the evening breeze beneath the crisp scent of the autumn leaves, a subtle sweetness at the edges of the cold." I mean, come on, isn't that just so fantastic and so atmospheric? Okay, so my next recommendation for you is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi. So this one is a very sumptuous, gothic-infused story about a marriage that is unravelled by dark secrets, a friendship cursed to end in tragedy, and the danger of believing in fairy tales. So I feel like that really captures the essence of this story. It's so whimsical and dark and beautiful, and it has some really gorgeous writing as well. So this basically follows the story of the bridegroom. So it's a man who is married to this mysterious woman called Indigo under one condition, which is that he never pries into her past, and he is very willing to accept that condition at first. But then Indigo's aunt becomes fatally unwell, and so they decide to go and visit her, and they go back to Indigo's old childhood home. And when they're there, it becomes more and more difficult for the bridegroom to ignore Indigo's past and to turn away. He has questions and he starts to uncover secrets, and we watch how that affects his marriage. And yeah, there's some fantasy elements that are woven throughout the story as well, and it's just such a beautiful and absorbing story, and it's just so atmospheric and perfect for this time of year. So if you like lyrical writing, if you like things that have that fairy tale like quality to them, then I think that you'll really love this book. Okay, so my next recommendation for you is Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. So this one is set in boarding school, so it has that back to school feeling, which is perfect for September, but it's also dripping with atmosphere and poetic writing and twisted fairy tales, and also a healthy dose of teenage angst and pining. So the story follows our main character Andrew, who enjoys writing. He likes writing these poisoned fairy tales that no one really understands except for his best friend Thomas, who likes to draw scenes from Andrew's writing and from his stories. And the two of them have this connection together. But something's a little bit off this year when they start school. Thomas seems a little bit odd, and so Andrew follows him into the forest, and he realizes that Thomas's drawings have been coming to life, which means that the monsters from Andrew's stories are now real. And so the question is how to defeat them. Maybe the only way to destroy these monsters is to destroy their creator. So that's the backdrop for this story. Now, I will be honest and say that I haven't quite finished this one yet. I'm actually currently reading it, but as I was reading this story, I was like, this is absolutely perfect for this recommendations video because it is just so atmospheric. There is also a beautiful love story at the heart of this book. There's a great representation, but it's also the kind of story where you can peel back the layers and you can uncover kind of hidden depths, really. So there's different ways you can kind of interpret the story and the experience of our main character. But I will say that the writing is very over the top, which I personally think works well for this kind of story with its themes of obsession and first love, and I don't know, the fact that the main characters are teenagers, and everything is so over the top when you're a teenager anyway, isn't it? So I feel like it really reflects the headspace of our main character, especially because he loves writing poetry and he loves writing these twisted fairy tales. So the writing style really suits him as a character, but I do feel like it's the kind of writing that is a bit hit and miss. I feel like it'll either work for you or you'll absolutely hate it. So for that reason, I'm just going to give you a read of literally just the first paragraph of the book to give you an idea of what to expect. So the book opens by saying, "It hadn't hurt the day he had cut out his own heart." Andrew had written about it later in spidery lines from a sharp pen, a story about a boy who took a knife to his chest and carved himself open, showing ribs like mossy tree roots, his heart a bruised and wretched thing beneath. No one would want a heart like this, but he'd still cut it out and given it away. Being left aching and hollow was a familiar feeling, a comfortable pain. Andrew had always been an empty boy. So yeah, that just gives you a little bit of a flavour for how kind of over the top the writing is. But yeah, this one definitely packs a punch when it comes to atmosphere and is just perfect for this time of year. My next recommendation for you is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. So this is a very darkly seductive story about Dracula's first wife, Constanta. Now, I personally feel like this book is a work of art. It's all told in letters that Constanta is writing to Dracula, and it basically details their life together. So it's chronicling from when Constanta was first turned into a vampire through centuries as their marriage turns from 2 people to 4 people. So there's a polyamory relationship within this book, and It's just so well written. Like I said, it's written in letter format and it's written to you as if you are Dracula. So it feels very intimate and very personal and very vulnerable. And you really get to understand the inner monologue, the inner workings of our main character and the things that she is going through, her experiences, the way that she feels towards Dracula, of course, but also the way that she feels about herself and also the way she feels about the other brides as well. So there's a really complex relationships going on within this book, and they are so well written. And ultimately it's a story about surviving a toxic relationship and a story about choosing yourself and those that you love and putting them first. So it is quite an empowering story, really. It is obviously edged with tragedy, but it's just so beautifully written. And like I said, you really feel like you fall into the head of Constanta and, you know, you're experiencing things through her eyes, and it's so well written. So I absolutely love this one. It really delivers on the gothic vibes. You know, there's lust, there's love, there's pain, there's violence, there's everything that you would want from a vampire story, and I just ate it up. So I really love this one, and yeah, had to include it on an atmospheric autumn book list. Speaking of vampires, my next recommendation for you is Empire of the Vampire by J. Christoph. So this is the first book in a fantasy trilogy, and I believe the third and final book is coming out very soon. I think it's being published in November, so now might be the perfect time to pick up this book because you can binge the whole series, which is always really fun. And yeah, this is a great story. It kept me hooked from beginning to end, and it's basically following our main character, who's a man called Gabriel, and he is a silver saint, which is basically this holy brotherhood that is dedicated to defending the world and the church from creatures of the night. In other words, he is basically a holy vampire killer. And it's all told through interview format. So Gabriel has been captured by the very creatures that he has vowed to defend the world from. And whilst he is captive, he is forced to tell his story. So he is discussing and telling us about how he became a silver saint, but also the quest that he was going on to find the Holy Grail. And so yeah, it's all told in interview format, which is really fun because it means that you get some interjections from the interviewer as well. And there's always that element of it being maybe an unreliable narrator, but also I loved that we're jumping between different timelines as well. So we have that coming of age type story where we're finding out how Gabriel became a silver saint in the first place, but you also have him later on when he's more of like a jaded character, and he's just such a great character to follow. And there are also some nice emotional moments in there, some character relationships that you can become really invested in, and it's just a fun time. And I wanted to include this one on this list because yes, it's a vampire book, so it seems perfect for autumn because of that, but also there's just something so theatrical and atmospheric about the writing style. You know, there's lots of descriptions of, you know, sprays of blood and things like that when we have these violent scenes, and it always very kind of over the top and theatrical in a way that really works with this kind of gothic story, and I loved that. We have some really interesting gothic settings as well, and some great characters, like I said. And also these books include artwork as well, which I really enjoy. It's this beautiful gothic style of artwork that again just really encapsulates the feeling of the story. So I will try and put some images on the screen for you. Hopefully they aren't spoilers, but just to give you an idea of the kind of art pieces that you also get to experience whilst reading this story. So yeah, this one is such a great book to pick up this time of year. I'm so excited to get the third book, and I might go back and reread the first one so that I can binge the series and finish it this year. So that's very exciting. My next recommendation for you is The Ghost Bride by Yangzi Chu. So this is a atmospheric, beautiful coming of age story that is infused with Chinese folklore. So in this book, we follow our main character, Lilan, and her family is a noble family, but they are on the brink of bankruptcy because their father has run them into debt. And one day her father brings up that this rich Lim family are interested in Lilan as a potential bride for their son. Now that seems like a really great thing because it means that it would be the solution to all their problems. It means that they would then be financially stable. You know, this could be a great connection between the two families. But there's a caveat. The son that Lilan would be being married off to is actually dead. So the son died a few years prior under mysterious circumstances, and so Lilan would become a ghost bride. Now obviously she's not happy about this idea, especially when she starts being haunted by the ghost of this would-be bridegroom. And for reasons that you find out during the book, Lilan basically ends up being pulled into this afterlife world, this kind of ghostly parallel universe, parallel world. And whilst she's there, she has to try and uncover the truth about what happened to the Lim son and why he died. But she also has to find out some truths about her own family as well. And she must do all this in order to stop herself from being trapped in the ghostly realm forever. So of course a lot of this book is set in this afterlife world, so it is super atmospheric for that reason. You have ghost cities, you have vengeful spirits, you have paper funeral offerings, so it is such a cool setting. It's so atmospheric for that reason. This book also has a little bit of a love story woven through it, but I wouldn't say that it is the main focus of the story. I would say the focus is much more on family and also on our main character finding agency, so taking control of her own fate, and I loved it for that reason. Next up we have House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. So this is a horror book and it centres on our main character who is a 17-year-old girl called Iris, and she and her two sisters actually went missing when they were children and no one knows what happened to them. Their mum turned away for 2 seconds and then the three of them were just disappeared, they had vanished. And then, the police got involved, they couldn't find them, but the children reappeared again a decent amount of time later, and they appeared largely unharmed, except for they all had this crescent-shaped scar on their neck. That's the only thing that seemed different to them. And the children weren't able to say what happened to them. They lost their memories. And now it's obviously been a significant amount of time since then. Our main character is now 17 and the story kicks off when one of her sisters, I think it's the eldest sister, goes missing again. So Iris tries to basically follow in her sister's footsteps to find out what happened to her, and as she does that she starts uncovering some secrets and learning a little bit more about what happened to them when they were children. And that's all I'm gonna say. This one is so twisty, it's so fun, and it also has a real kind of creepy vibe to it. I feel like the cover gives you a sense for what the story is like. There's lots of imagery of decay and moss and fungi and mold and mildew, those kinds of things, kind of like a botanical quality to the horror. And yeah, the mystery keeps you turning the pages, there's twists and turns along the way, and there's also some really creative scenes as well. So yeah, I really love this book. I thought it was great and can't recommend it highly enough. Speaking of botanical type horror, my next recommendation for you is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. So this is another incredibly atmospheric book. It's nice and short as well, so if you're looking for a faster read, this might be a good one to pick up. And yeah, this one is a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. And this one basically follows our main character, who is an ex-soldier, I think, and they find out that their childhood best friend is really unwell. So they go to visit her in her family home, the House of Usher, and when they arrive they are really shocked by the state of the place, how unkempt the house is, but also how aged and haggard the Usher family look. And so they basically try to investigate what's going on, what is happening to their friend, what is happening to the Usher family, and yeah, that's all I'm going to tell you. But T. Kingfisher does such an excellent job at making the house and the surrounding grounds feel really ominous and unnatural and threatening. So there is that real atmosphere there. There's some really creepy and unsettling moments and scenes. There are some disturbing scenes that involve animals. I do want to just warn you of that. So if that's not something that you want to read about, you might want to skip this book. But yeah, it is so creepy and unsettling, the kind of thing that gets under your skin, and is just such a compelling read too. So yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Okay, and finally I want to recommend to you a series, and that is the Wayward children's series by Shannon Maguire. So this is a series of fantasy books, and I believe the most recent one is Adrift in Currents Clean and Clear, but it starts with Every Heart a Doorway, and each book in this series is a self-contained story, so you can read them out of order, but I personally recommend starting at the beginning and working your way through, because you become familiar with characters that pop up throughout the book series. But yeah, these are stories that have a fairy tale-like quality to them, but they also have that edge, that slight creepiness that I love. And yeah, it's a portal fantasy, so each book centers on a child who finds a doorway to a fantasy world. They go through the doorway, they go into this fantasy world, and they experience an adventure. So they go through and they feel like finally they fit in. So these children are kids that don't, feel like they really fit in, that no one really understands them, and then they find this doorway, they go through, and they finally feel at peace. They finally feel this is somewhere they belong. But unfortunately, these children can't stay in these fantasy worlds for a long time, and for one reason or another, they are usually booted back out to the normal world. And now that they're back in the regular world, they fit in even less. Parents don't believe what they say, teachers don't believe them, no one believes them, and these kids often end up getting sent off to this school for wayward children. And the school is fronted as this place for kind of disturbed children or whatever, but actually it's been set up by a woman who does believe what the children are saying, and so she creates this sanctuary for them, and it's kind of like a safe place for them to be themselves, and a place where they are able to wait and hopefully one day discover a doorway back to the fantasy world where they belong. So yeah, this is a great series. I really love how it has a really whimsical quality to it, but how it also deals with some really interesting themes and topics, themes that affect children, themes like, finding out who you are, the struggles that you might face with, your own image, all kinds of things, some really interesting stuff, your relationship with your parents. It deals with just some great topics, but done in a really fun way. And I like how each book centers on a different child, and of course each child goes to a different fantasy world, so they all have quite different feelings and different settings to them, but there is that edge of something not being quite right a lot of the time in these books, which I also really enjoy. So yeah, if you're looking for a whimsical story to get lost in this autumn, then I recommend this series. And the books are pretty short as well, so they're also quite nice for just cuddling up and reading in an evening. So yeah, I definitely recommend that series if you're looking for something cozy and atmospheric this autumn. So that brings me to the end of this list. I hope that you found some recommendations here. If you have any further recommendations, do please drop them in the comment section down below so that people can find even more recommendations. Let me know what you're reading this autumn, because I'd love to hear from you. And like I said, I will also be doing some more videos on my favourite horror and ghost stories and things like that, so do subscribe if you haven't already if you want to hear me talking about those. As always, don't forget to like this video if you did like it, and yeah, I guess I'll see you next time with another video. Bye!